is your host, Dan Kuschell.
Welcome to growthtofreedom.com. Are you ready to transform your life, business, and relationships? Well, I'm Dan Kuschell, and thanks for making us part of your day. We've got a great show today to bring you more clarity, confidence, and capabilities. The show is presented by Done For You Solutions, and we'd love to connect with you on Twitter. You can find us at Dan_Kuschell. That's Dan_Kuschell, Kuschell, or email us at info@growthtofreedom.com. That's info@growthtofreedom.com. I want you to stay tuned because we have a very special program and package that we're going to make available for you today for free as part of our show today. We've got a very special guest. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been in a place where you wanted to have a better grasp around money? Making it, keeping it, building it, growing it. How about the ability to get paid more of what you're worth, right? Or how about the strategies to have control, personal power, to do what you deserve to do? Well, that's what today's show is going to be all about. We have a special guest, RC Peck. He's a CFP, Certified Financial Planner, Registered Advisor. He's the founder of FearlessWealth.com, the creator of Easy Conversations, and he's a media expert, been featured on numerous radio and TV programs all over the country. RC, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to dive right into it. I know I have a perspective of your background. It's interesting how we got a chance to meet a mutual friend of ours, Rick Thompson, who I've known for, I don't know, probably 15 years now, I think, somewhere in that range. And he said, you two need to get together. You guys can make some, incredible things happen. So who is RC Peck, and what does he do?
Oh, so that question floods my brain. Let's see. The first thing that hits my brain is I'm a father. So I have two kids, a 4-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. I'm a husband. I've been married 10 years. I'm a son. I have parents. But when you ask that question, I'm a guy who wants to figure things out. I think if we move past maybe titles or words or like what's really behind, what really drives my curiosity, I want to figure it out. I really want to figure it out. And the two places that I've spent my entire adult life figuring out were two places that I was very, very scared of growing up. So I guess I'm someone who wanted to and has figured out the right way in doing something. So just very curious and I guess a bit relentless in just wanting to find that answer.
And it's interesting you say that because in prep for the show, RC, I got a chance to see a video that you had done, a very compelling video that you can go check out over at fearlesswealth.com and hear RC's story in depth. But you talked about the situation with your dad and how literally working with a financial advisor literally got stripped of all of his wealth, almost, I don't want to say overnight, but seemingly overnight the way you described it. His retirement, his retirement funds, etc. And it really captivated you, compelled you to really go on this search of how to work with money, manage money, build money, grow money, and the mindset around money. And also influence, persuasion, and what you call easy conversation. So can you talk about that a little bit, your story as a kid, and like what motivated you to want to figure these things out?
There were probably two things that I consciously can identify. One is when my dad was 50, and at the time my mom was 47. I have two older sisters, still do. I got home from school. Both my parents were home, which was odd. We were, middle class working family, so my parents were never home when I got home. Let alone two of them being home. So I was like, uh-oh, like you could just tell something's wrong. And I actually thought one of my sisters was killed or in the hospital. And so the first thing I asked was, is Tara and Tanya okay? Like, are they okay? Because they were in college at this time. I was still in high school. And they basically said, it was my dad that said it. And I don't remember the words, I just remember the feeling, but we lost all our money. and I didn't know what that meant. I'm like 17, 18. But basically what happened was they gave their money to a financial advisor, and the financial advisor was he was very democratic about his embezzlement. He embezzled from everybody, not just my parents. They stole everybody's money. But I just remember, how do you steal? Again, I'm 17, 18. How do you steal someone's retirement? I get stealing a car. I get a television, a broken window. You see when they came in the house. But it's like, okay, my dad's 50. He's 50. They have no money. I think they had a month, literally a month in the checking account. 2 kids in very expensive colleges, one going. The next thing that hit my brain was, am I going to college? Are they telling me I can't go to college? All these things are flooding my brain. And I didn't get how this happened. How did this happen? And that was a huge, that changed the way I look at the world, right? The human brain, especially the male human brain, is not finished being fully formed, the prefrontal lobes, until you're 26. So here I am 9 years before that point when my brain is fully formed. So this is going to change the way my brain is designed. And it did. So that was one thing. I couldn't figure out how it happened. And though it didn't start immediately, but that kind of became one of the drivers of how does this whole money thing work? You don't really see it. You see cash, but this isn't about cash. This is about something completely else. So that was one of the things. And the other thing, which was probably as powerful but not as acute, was we grew up in a very rich town, and we were, let's just be kind and say middle class. And it just, I didn't get how my parents could work all day. And I would visit some of my friends, and they would literally, no embellishment, be in 12 to 15,000 square foot houses with a 6-car garage, with indoor Olympic pools, and their parents would be home. The mom would always be home. I'm like, but doesn't your mom work? I don't get this. And the dad would be home a lot too. So my brain could not wrap itself around this. Just how did they get that and we get this? I don't get it. And that kind of the combination of the two started really my path of, I got to figure this out.
And I know through the show today, we're going to talk about some of those strategies around money, RC. How does the money thing work? And by the way, as you're watching right now or you're listening right now, as a dad, as a parent, as a mom, we've got a very special treat for you later on in the show, a tribute to parents all over the world that I think is going to blow you away. And I'm a little partial, I have to admit, on that, but you're going to want to stay tuned for that because I have a feeling it's going to take your breath away when I share and reveal what we're going to do near the end of our episode today. But RC, one of your stops on your journey, or one of the pieces of your journey, I think that probably has allowed you to build into the development growth that you have, is you're an NLP practitioner. And what I find fascinating, I hear a lot of people throw that term around. I'd almost like to go to the core basics to give people an understanding, because I think there's a sect of people that are intimidated by NLP because some of the practices from way back in the 70s and early 80s, and it's evolved quite a bit. And what is NLP and so on? So can you share with our listeners what is NLP to start with?
Yeah, and I will tell you what I think it is. So NLP, and there's the letter N, the letter L, and the letter P. Each one of those letters, and I'll say what they are, is a component, or the 3 major components to what makes up human experience. So what creates our experience of who we are and how we operate, what we believe to be true. And there's 3 parts to it. One part is literally how our body and brain functions together. That's the N. That's neuro. So how do we function when things happen, when experiences happen? There's literally a neuro-based level of how we act and react to things. The second part is the L, which is literally linguistics, but just words. What words create what images for us, right? Almost all words load up images or experiences or sounds or gustatory feelings in our body. Now, we don't know this consciously, right? But if someone says campfire, most likely to people, almost always, that's going to load up something for them. And we don't know if it's a horrible experience or a good experience. So words matter, and words create experience.
2 minutes.
And then the third, the letter P, is programming. Basically, programming is just a word that means what is the set of instructions that you've been taught to follow. And we usually get those set of instructions from our parents, but not consciously. They don't sit you down and go, okay, so these are the set of instructions you're going to follow in life. They kind of download it to you, and you unconsciously follow that, which means all these things can be adjusted.
And it can be adjusted. You can adapt. It allows for growth. I mean, the whole theme of our show is about growth to freedom, so I think it fits and plays well into that. So in a quick, maybe 30 seconds or less here, what is an NLP practitioner? What do you do as an NLP practitioner overall?
I don't practice NLP as a practitioner, but an NLP practitioner would be someone that someone else goes to who's looking to get a shift or a change where they haven't found that change yet, right? So that person may have them reconnect an experience for them, literally by how the body remembers or programs something. So they may help the brain reprogram or refire or reconnect an experience.
Reconnect an experience. And, one of the things as I was doing some research for the show, RC, there was something that said that you have an ability to identify and locate the area of maximum leverage for your clients, your lucky clients. And you know what? As you're watching, as you're listening right now, when we come back, we're going to dive more into the human experience. We're going to talk more about the easy conversation strategy. We're going to talk more about money, building it, growing it, maximizing it, that and a whole lot more coming up right after this on growthtofreedom.com.
I wanna go to keep on going. We gotta keep on going.
Welcome back to growthtofreedom.com. I have a question for you as you're watching right now, listening. Are you ready for more clarity, confidence, capabilities? Well, if you're just joining us, let's summarize the first segment of the show. We've got RC Peck joining us. He's the founder of fearlesswealth.com, the creator of Easy Conversations. He's a certified financial planner, registered advisor. And we've been talking about his background and how he actually got into the financial field in the first place, which he had an experience as a kid with his dad. You can go check out the video at his site at fearlesswealth.com to just really get into the impact of that and, maybe put yourself in his shoes, and maybe you've been there. I know I've been there. As he was sharing the story, I was thinking back to a time when I was a kid, when my dad had a business, and we had a motorcycle gang that threatened to blow up his business, and it was a mess. And I ended up being interviewed by the FBI or whatever it was in the local area over that whole experience, and that was my introduction to entrepreneurship, and that you've got to be able to watch your back. I grew up in a little rougher neighborhood, by the way, than you, RC. Yeah, and so we've also been talking about this concept of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, about the human experience, if I've got it right. N is for the neuro side of it. It's the body and brain function, how you act and react. Linguistics are the words that you put to images, the sounds, the feelings that you get. And these are unconscious type thing. And words can mean many things to different people depending on who you ask, like using the word campfire. We've got P for programming, which is the set of instructions which have been programmed from the social environments we've been in at an unconscious or subconscious level. And then really what NLP is the ability to shift change. And in many ways, you're an expert at helping people shift change in two main areas. One is, I guess I'd call it selling. The other is finance. So why don't we dive in? Because as you're watching right now or you're listening, have you ever asked yourself, how can I be better at presenting myself to be able to go get a raise? Or how can I be better if I'm a consultant to be able to go out and ask for a higher amount of money? Or how can I go out there and charge more for more of my right fit type clients? And in some of the prep that I've done with RC here, he's got some strategies that he can share with you on how to be able to do just that. I mean, what would that be worth for you? What value would you have if you were able to walk away with a couple strategies to be able to position yourself to potentially go out there and increase your value in the marketplace by 5%, 10%, 20%? I know he's had exponential results far greater than that too. So you call this, one of the strategies you work with, the easy conversation strategy, and you call it taking out it's the zero yuckiness factor for either party. So what is the easy conversation strategy, and how does it all play out?
So I hated sales growing up. My dad was an outside salesperson. I didn't like the variation in sales, variation in income that comes from an outside sales. I didn't like the whole thing. And yet, here I am in my 20s running my own company, which basically means I have to sell every day, which I often say to someone who's about to quit their day job, you're going to become a full-time salesperson. I'm like, no, I'm going to become a coach. No, I'm doing consulting. I'm like, no, you're going to be a full-time salesperson.
Yes.
And most people don't get that, and they struggle at it because they don't get that the growth of a company. And look, I think my content is world-class, and I think a lot of people think their content is world-class. And what I mean by content is literally the service they provide. But any company in the world only has three parts to a company: their operations, their fulfillment, and sales. And sales is the one that grows the company 50, 100% a year until you're just so big you can only grow at 20 or 30% a year. So I kind of backed into, well, I guess if I want to help more people, I guess I'm going to have to figure out the sales thing. But I really hate it. But I want to sell, but I don't want it to feel gross or icky or yucky, and it did. And so I basically figured out a way to have a conversation with someone, a buying conversation. And the way it came about is, what's the experience, kind of going back to NLP, what's the experience the buyer is going through? And if you're able to crawl into that buyer's brain and just see the experience they're going through, it's pretty bad. They're defending themselves. They're feeling threatened. They're putting their hand on their wallet to make sure their money is still there. They're having to defend themselves. They're having to make a lot of decisions during this sales process. So it's really bad for them. And so, there's got to be a better way. And I just thought, well, what if it just was like an easy conversation? What if it was just a conversation with a friend, like it's easy? Like, what would that be like? And so that's kind of where the idea of the name came from. But the idea that there must be a way that you can talk to somebody, even somebody you don't know that well, so they feel safe. They are not having to defend themselves. And again, a lot of this is happening unconsciously. So they can actually be curious and like, oh, well, what do you mean? And so that was kind of the foundation of the impetus of like, how can this be fun? Like, and I don't say this like lightly, like, oh yeah, I get up in the morning and I clap my hands together and go, sales is amazing.
Right.
Like, no, like, this is really horrible. Like, this is like a disgusting part of life. And, a lot of times when I meet coaches or clients or business owners, they look at it like this necessary evil. Like, what I do is amazing. My clients really get helped. But I got to go through this horrible, disgusting experience. And once I get through that or survive that or they survive that, then I can really do amazing things for them.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up, RC. I mean, Joe Polish, who we both know, and I work with Joe, and we do a lot of incredible things with Genius Network. He has this video, and I encourage you to go check it out. It's called Is Selling Evil on YouTube. And, I mean, it's got over, 50,000 views on the thing. But, essentially talks about the stigma related to sale, what you're hitting on, which is this whole idea of this icky feeling, the used car thing where you're protecting yourself, you're defensive, etc. And, sales, though, and marketing is like oxygen in the business. Without it, it dies. And, how many great ideas, how many great inventions have come and gone because they didn't get behind the whole idea of really what is selling. And I love Dan Sullivan's definition RC, of selling. And I'd love to get your take on it too, because it is a paradigm shift for a lot of us. I know for me it has been. I mean, in my early years of selling, I would not want to have been the person on the other end of that sales experience, quite frankly, as I was trying to figure it out and learn and, get through all the different techniques, if you will. And then I learned it's really just a natural type process. But Dan Sullivan's definition, hopefully I'll get it right, is getting people intellectually engaged in a future result that is good for them, and then getting them to emotionally commit to take action to achieve that result. I mean, isn't that a healthy definition, RC?
Yeah, I mean, that seems very clean. Like, how would you not want that?
1 minute.
Exactly. Now, by the way, so let me see if I've got this right. There's 3 parts to a company: operation, fulfillment, and sales. Sales being the oxygen that drives it. Ideally, what you're doing with the conversation, the easy conversation strategy, is you're putting them into an environment where you're eliminating the threatening side of it, the defensive side of it, where they have to make a lot of decisions so that they feel safe and they're curious to go into that.
30.
And when we come back, I'd love RC to go into some specific takeaways that you'll be able to utilize starting today on how to put the easy conversation into place for you. We're going to talk about building, growing, and advancing your money power. We're going to talk about a celebration to dads, a very special treat. You're not going to want to miss this. That and a whole lot more coming up right after this on growthtofreedom.com. Welcome back to growthtofreedom.com, the show that helps you transform your life, business, and relationships. Let's summarize the first 2 segments of the show. We've got RC Peck, the founder of fearlesswealth.com, the creator of Easy Conversations, a certified financial planner, registered advisor, and just an all-around good guy. He's a dad, he's a son, he's a husband. For over 10 years, you've probably got a few secrets that you could share. You're probably using NLP and Easy Conversations to make that work. Isn't that right?
Well, I will say my wife is also an NLP master practitioner. So
that's awesome. Now, if you're just joining us, to give you an overview of what we've been covering, we've been talking about NLP, we've been talking about neuro-linguistic programming, we've been talking about shifting change, we've been talking about a concept of sales, Dan Sullivan's definition of sales, which is getting people intellectually engaged in a future result that is good for them and getting them to emotionally commit to take action to achieve that result. We've been talking about the easy conversation technique to put people in a safe place so that they're curious and open. And with that in mind, RC, I'd love for you to give our viewers and our listeners a walk-away strategy here. How can someone apply this in their life or in their business or in their career today to be able to go out and have that easy conversation or set the stage for the easy conversation to go out and essentially position themselves for greater value in the marketplace?
So there's many steps or parts to it, but probably one of the most important is what I call the price drop. So how do you drop the price? How do you talk about the price? And what most people do is they just give the price, right? Well, this is how much I am an hour, or this is what I am monthly, or this is what it costs. And that enters the person's brain without any framing. So let's just say the number is 5,000. That number enters the person's brain at 5,000. It goes into that other person's brain, and you have no idea what it's doing. Like, is that a trip to Hawaii for the family? Is that a used car for their daughter when they go to college? Is that paying off the credit card? Like, it's literally, this is actually what's happening. That number is moving around the brain at light speed, trying to grasp what it means. And so they go into their history and go, well, this is what 5,000 means to me. That's what their brain's doing. And you have no control over what's going on if you just do a kind of a naked price drop. You just put a price out there. So one thing that I can give is to kind of show people how to, what I call, frame the price. So if you're gonna give a price, you want to put a kind of a stadium around it or a big wall around the price. For example, let's just say you think you deserve, or what your value is $5,000, right? So we'll just use an arbitrary number. You have to control that number when it goes into their brain. And the way you do that is you build a wall around that number that's maybe $10,000 high or $15,000 high. So when it goes into their brain, what was put into the brain first was this wall of like, okay, $15,000. So when you then, because they don't know what number you're going to drop in the middle, and they don't actually know this is happening. So then when you go in and say $5,000, I know that the brain will put that $5,000 inside the stadium with the $20,000 foot high, walls. I know it will be put inside of that stadium or inside of that fenced backyard with the $20,000 foot wall. So then that $5,000 has a much harder time to move all around the brain because it's going to hit up against the $20,000 first, and that person's going to load up. Oh, well, that person made $20,000 because of that. We can talk about how to build that wall, but just as far as the structure, you want to build that wall. And a really easy way to build the wall is you could just simply say, man, I know there's people who pay $20,000 for this service. That, and in fact, when you were speaking with me, it reminded me of Joe, and Joe will often spend $20,000 to get this. So I'm just making this up on the fly, but
speaking of making it up on the fly, I'd love to go deeper with this because I think this simple concept of a wall makes sense. You also talk about a secret emotion to get created before people buy from you at your price. And I'd love for you to touch on that, efforts-based versus results-based, and really get into how people can reach you related to some of the financial things that you do as well. And by the way, as you're listening right now or watching right now, we promised you a special gift package. And here's what I want to ask you.
30 seconds.
What would it be worth for you to have the ability to go out and be able to influence, persuade, to be able to move a crowd, to be able to attract the things you want to attract? Well, we've got this special package for you. We're going to give you our best-selling book, A Champion in the Making, this book, Walking with the Wise, our CD program, our video program. We'll get that to you today when you pick up the phone and call 602-246-3389. That's 602-246-3389. It's yours right now for free. And we'll be back right after this with growthtofreedom.com. Welcome back to growthtofreedom.com. Are you ready to transform your life, business, and relationships? We're ready to show you how. In a moment, we're going to be celebrating dads. That's right, dads. Heck, we're going to celebrate parents too. I think you're going to be blown away with what I'll share with you. And of course, I am a little bit partial on this. However, let's summarize the first three segments of the show. We've been talking with RC Peck, the founder of fearlesswealth.com, creator of Easy Conversations, certified financial planner and registered advisor. We've been talking about neuro-linguistic program, how you can shift change. What is selling? 3 parts of a company: operation, fulfillment, and sales. Sales is the oxygen, and how you can put people into an easy conversation where they're curious, insatiably curious, and feel safe to want to do business with you. And we left off the last segment talking about the idea of building framing around pricing and how you can set the stage for value proposition, for your value to be able to go out in the marketplace. Because guess what? You deserve it, don't you? You deserve to be paid the very best that you can get. No doubt about it. You're a free agent in the world. You can choose what that is. And I think the strategies that RC can share with you can help you do just that. So what I want to dive into, RC, to wrap this off, any other comments that you have related to the framing overall on the price, but also get into this idea that you talk about, the secret emotion to create before you get people to buy at your price. I mean, what is that exactly?
Yeah, so, my background is, financial advising and money management. And, everyone will say, even if they have an advisor that's losing them money, at some level they'll all say, well, I like him and trust him, right? So most people would say, well, trust is that secret emotion, but trust is not the foundation. What creates trust? And the reason why the tallest buildings in every town are owned by, financial companies is because when a human walks in that tall building and goes up to the 22nd floor and talks to someone with a $1,000 suit on behind a desk you could land a plane on, what they're loading up is, I feel safe. Like, I feel safe. Okay, this person is tall and good looking, and oh my gosh, she went to what Ivy League school, and look at how he or she carries themselves, and what's actually going on at the neurological level is I'm feeling safe here. Look at all these people running around. This must be safe. So that core emotion is, how do you create safety? So most people would create it by, big office, the tall building, the what they wear. A lot of companies have outside salespeople to go out and meet their prospects and their clients. That's all to build safety, right? Because the safer the buyer's brain is experiencing themselves, the safer they feel, the more they want to buy. I mean, literally the amount they want to buy, the price they want to pay, how soon they want to buy, how long they want to stay around is all a result, it's all an output of the level of safety they are having during the buying or selling process.
And speaking of that, I mean, this applies not just to selling, not just to being able to influence, but I mean, to me, I'm thinking of, this is almost at a reptilian level of relationship building, whether it's a spouse and a partner, or whether it's a 10-year marriage. At some level, the question that likely is being asked by both parties, am I still safe, right? Starting it is, am I safe? Then it's the degree of safety that people feel ultimately that either gets made or gets lost over time and has to be adjusted and modified and built upon. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, what your brainstem or your R complex, which sits on top of your brainstem, literally it has one job, and it's the oldest part of your brain. Every moment you've ever been alive, a moment, it has said, am I safe? 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 Or it says, can I survive this? Can I survive this? Can I survive this? It depends how the brain is wired. But that's all it's saying. And if it only has one or two answers, it's either yes or not yes. And if it's not yes, right, depending on what question you're asking, it's going to act immediately, right? So if that other person's brain, which every moment of its life in a sales conversation is still saying, am I safe? Am I safe? The moment it says no, then that's going to give a signal to the brain. Now, we have prefrontal lobes. They're pretty big. They're the newest part of our brain. Then the prefrontal lobes are going to battle the R complex and go, but I don't see tigers around here, and there's no bee chasing me or hornet. Like, this is actually happening in moments. And so they start having a debate. Now, the R complex is going to win every time, but now that person's brain is starting to get decision fatigue, and they're starting to not be interested in you and be like, well, I'm kind of hungry. Let's get back. This is not a good time. Maybe later. I'm not sure what you're doing. Like, this is all going on in the brain, all because they don't feel safe. So if you get that one emotion right and know that that's the foundation of all of the words you should use, how do you create safety in a prospect? You don't have to see them in person. You don't have to fly across the country. You don't have to, wear fancy clothes and be in a tall building. What you have to do is figure out how to create safety.
How to create safety. I mean, as you're watching right now, as you're listening, I mean, think about how you can do that not only with your family, your kids, but also in business. If you run a business or if you work for a company, to be able to go out and increase the value, because at this reptilian level, if someone is saying, no, I don't feel safe, they're in a fight or flight mode, aren't they?
But yeah, I mean, there is a debate going on in their brain, and ultimately the R complex, the oldest part of the brain, it's going to win because you got here. You survived the last 3 million years, whatever. Like your ancestors made the right choice for tens of thousands of years to get you here. So you're going to listen to that old part of your brain and go, yeah, not right now.
Not right now. We want to help you avoid someone saying not right now to you, or not now, or not ever. And we want to help flip the tables on you. In fact, speaking of that, RC, I know you've worked with hundreds, maybe even thousands of clients all over the world in your career. Through your subscribers. I know you've got over 20,000 people that you've built that are following you. Knowing what you know now, right, as a dad, right, you've been married for 10 years, you're only in your 20s, and this may seem like a weird question, but I do this because a big reason I actually do this show is for my kids, leaving a legacy, leaving a footprint, leaving a thumbprint for them that ultimately down the road they really understand what dad stood for. And for you, as you look back, maybe to your younger self, maybe you're 15, 16 years old, getting into business, starting on this journey, what advice would you give you that would be the most important advice if you were starting over that you would wish someone would have taught you right up front in helping you win the game of life, business, and success?
Probably, so there's this weird thing that's going on, and I don't know if it's just me that notices this or other people, but most of my thoughts are negative, right? Look, I meditate, I exercise, I've worked on my mind and body my entire life, and still I get hit with negative thoughts almost all day long. And my parents never told me this. Like, there was no class in school like, most of your thoughts are going to be negative. Let's talk about this. So what I would tell my 16-year-old self is, you're going to have some negative thoughts, some anxiety or stress or doubt or hopelessness, and those aren't your thoughts, and that's part of the game. That's not the sign for you to stop. That's just like, oh, there's those things going on. That's not about you, but it's happening in you. That's not your sign to stop. And I started many, many successful companies that I just stopped. Literally, when I was in 8th grade, I was selling Chinese throwing stars and making a killing. And one day, I just stopped selling them because something's wrong, because of these negative emotions. So it would be somewhere, the conversation would be somewhere around these negative emotions and negative feelings, and telling him that that's not the sign to stop. That's not the feedback loop of, oh, something's dangerous, you're about to be in danger. That I would talk to him about how those probably aren't even your thoughts. I know this may sound weird, even though they're happening inside your body. And I actually tell my 4- and 7-year-old this stuff almost every day. And my 7-year-old will say, but Dad, it's happening inside me. I go, I know it doesn't make sense. You're not supposed to understand this right now, maybe but those aren't even your negative thoughts. They're either mine or Oma and Papa's or Grandpa's and Grandma's. They're not yours, even though they're in yours, in your head. They're not yours. That's what I would talk to him about that.
That's awesome advice, and it reminds me. I know at our dinner conversation with my kids on most days, one of the things I like to ask them, not only what they're grateful for, what they're happy about, what they've done well today, but I actually like to get them to talk about the mistakes they made, because I feel like for many of us, and I'll maybe only speak for me, is that we put a lot of weight on the mistakes we make and what's wrong, what doesn't work, that doubt, etc. So I have them bring out their mistakes, and it's now become one of the funnest thing, the thing that is the most fun for them to talk about, the most comfortable for them to talk about. So instead of feeling embarrassed, instead of feeling humiliated, they're empowered to bring on mistakes and embrace those mistakes to then ultimately go out and learn from them overall. And what I hear you saying is that, most of the thoughts that we may have are negative, and those negative emotions are not the stop sign. They're actually just a check-in, and probably in many ways checking in to see if we have the vitality to be able to move forward to truly get what we deserve. And speaking of that, RC, can you believe we've run out of time? I mean, this show flies by, doesn't it? So I want to ask you, maybe we can do a behind-the-scenes extra interview over the next couple days that I'll get with you on, that we can make available, because we promised to talk about some of the financial stuff, and we just haven't had time, but we'll record that if possible. But how do people get in touch with you? Where can they find you? What would you like them to go look at of your stuff?
So, in the fear of making this complicated, let me just give 2 easy-to-remember websites. If anyone had any interest or curiosity or noticing that they were interested in anything around the selling, you can just go to theeasyconversation.com. Theeasyconversation.com.
Theeasyconversation.com, correct?
Yeah, yep, exactly. Even though we really didn't talk about any of the investing, if that caught someone's attention and they were like waiting for us to get to that, they can just go to fearlesswealth.com. And that will help them. And
I want to encourage you to go visit RC and find out what he's doing, what he's up to at theeasyconversation.com and fearlesswealth.com. Because here's the thing, our goal is to bring you the very best experts in the world, right? And RC, I have to say, I think I'm better for it by having you on the show. I hope we can have you on again. I truly appreciate you taking the time to be with our viewers and our listeners today. And I want to challenge you, as you're watching or listening right now, to take action with some of the steps that RC's giving. I think I've got 4 or 5 pages of notes here to be able to go. And you can get a recap of this show and go to growthtofreedom.com/16. That's growthtofreedom.com/16. You can also email us at info@growthtofreedom.com. And I promised you, I wanted to celebrate dads, and I hope you'll stick around for this too, RC. My daughter shocked me 30 days ago. She said, Daddy, I'm going to surprise you with something at my music recital, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to make you cry. And my little girl, 9 years old, took my breath away, and I'd like to play literally 20 seconds from her recital from a singer I did not know I had in my family. And she touched my heart, and I hope this touches your heart, because you know what? You do deserve the best. Inside of all of us, there's a song to sing. There's a book inside of you. There's a champion. There's a winner. And you deserve the best, the very best. And this song is for you. Here you go. Wow. What do you think of that, RC?
I loved it.
That's from us to you, our gift to you today, because you know what? There is somebody out there that not only you love, but you can go out there and love as well. Take action with what you've learned. Seize the day. Make it a great week. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on growthtofreedom.com.